we like to ask our guests to say if you wanted to change one thing or ask somebody to change one thing to consciously create a life of their dreams. We've been talking about healing, but this works for your dreams too, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
What should they shift? And you don't have to just say one. And I was going to answer that for you, but I'm not supposed to answer questions. I'm supposed to ask them.
You are so good with feedback. Yes.
I'm evolving as a person. And, I always think, oh, I know based on what you said, pick me. But, that's like an overachiever thing that I'm letting go of. Okay.
But if you ask her to share, she will.
I will.
Yeah.
I would say, are you living in a growth mindset or not?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to LOA Uncorked. This is Holly.
And this is Jeanna.
Oh, and Jeanna, we've waited how long?
I mean, it feels like a lifetime.
I think it has been.
Yeah, it feels like it. In our podcasting world, it's
in our podcasting world, it is a lifetime.
In podcasting hours, it's a lifetime. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Jeanna, it's well worth the wait.
Oh, trust me.
I'm going to tell you why. Because today, our guest actually encompasses, let's start with an I. Incredible.
Okay. Good Lord. Oh, here we go.
She's not only going to be an incredible guest, an incredible woman. She has had an incredible transformation. And now she's an incredible healer.
Yes.
She has come through immense challenges, and she's proof that we can have overwhelming and devastating life experiences and completely transform our life. She's going to be an inspiration, Jeanna. Just prepare yourself.
I'm already ready.
I know you are.
I know.
Prepare yourself, audience.
Now that I know there's a lot of I's in her name, I'm all about it.
I know.
Yeah.
And there is no I's in her. Well, there is one. Okay. There's one, but we don't need to search for that right now. No. Okay. So now, okay. What's beautiful is she helps others find their own self-healing and help them create the lives that they desire.
Yeah.
So she uses her gifts to help others through these week-long retreats, which we're going to ask her about. I'm feeling an itch to go, by the way. Okay.
I know.
More than an itch.
I saw your sleeping bag outside.
I'm packing it up. Heading to the Netherlands. Okay. She does training and coaching. She can do all that virtual, by the way. You don't have to pack your sleeping bag up for that.
Yeah.
She's has therapy, and she can talk a little bit about her background on that. And she also has beautiful meditations.
Yeah, they are beautiful.
Now listen, if that isn't enough, she was written about in chapter 1 of Becoming Supernatural with Dr. Joe Dispenza.
So she's supernatural also.
Oh, hell yes, Jeanna.
Yes. Okay. All right. I figured.
And she comes to us from the Netherlands, and we want to thank you, Anouk Bindels, for spending your evening with us. Welcome to LOA Uncorked.
Good morning.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Yes. Thank you.
Or evening for you.
Yes,
I suppose.
Exactly.
Yes.
I didn't want to correct you, Jeanna.
It doesn't matter.
Time is irrelevant, which we might find out about. Okay.
Right. In the supernatural world, that is probably true. Well,
it is. There's no time.
There is no time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I just had a big milestone birthday, Anouk. So it's good to know that it doesn't matter. Time is not really relevant, right? Right.
That's great. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, it is incredible to have you. Another incredible for us. Thrilled to share your background, your experience, your expertise with our audience. And, we typically like to start our podcast with just a quick overview of you, just so that the audience has an opportunity to at least understand a bit about your story. And then we've got all kinds of questions that we can dive in on and for our conversation today. But if you wouldn't mind just a quick overview of your background and experience, that would be fantastic.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a female.
Yeah.
Living in the Netherlands.
Love it.
I was born in the Netherlands, brought up, but I'm from double nationality, German and Dutch. But I did my schooling and education in the Netherlands and in Switzerland. I'm trained as a licensed psychologist, and I'm also trained as a licensed family and relationship psychotherapist. And I did a lot of other trainings on like positive psychology, which I did in Illinois online. And I did neurofeedback training because of an event in my life, which we will come to, which was very big. I came onto the path of, instead of the clinical field, which I was working for almost 30 years, I shifted about 11 years ago. I shifted to more holistic approach and more trauma sensitivity in my work. And that was a huge opening up in my professional field. And in my personal field, I'm a cancer survivor. I suffered after the loss of my husband, which was in 2007. He committed suicide, and within 4 years, I developed cancer in the esophagus. And I did all the regular treatment, which was available for me at that time, but I didn't get better. And I knew that there must be something that would be able to cure this, because I had a very strong emotional reason to live. And that I discovered through Kelly Howell. And she's the writer of the book Radical Remission. So she came on my path first, and then Dr. Joe Dispenza came on my path. And these two persons were the very big main persons in my life at that moment that helped me transform and helped me to believe in that I could be healed and heal my cancer. Because when you hear the voodoo curse cancer,
yes,
and especially the esophagus, and they tell you, Mrs. Bindels, there's only 15% of the people that survive this kind of cancer. And you sit in that room, it's a nocebo. It's a nocebo for your mind, and you believe, I'm going to be one of those that don't survive.
right.
You know? And that means that you belong to the 80% that or 85% that die, right?
Right.
So I thought I was going to belong to that after they told me this.
Right.
But then I came onto the part of these beautiful people, these pioneers, which were already in the field and helping people to transform their lives and to start believing in concepts of self-healing. And after that, more people came onto my path, because that's how it goes. Once you open up to a new possibility, the whole landscape changes. And in that new landscape, new people came who helped me on this path. But the main person in my life at that time was Dr. Joe Dispenza and Kelly Howell. Wow. Because of the radical remission. And she helped me believe in that when you have a very strong emotional reason to live, you will, and you put all the things that she writes about, like your nurturing, your eating, your sleeping, your behavior, your mental, emotional state, and you go through those practices, the healing is possible. And that's what I did. Wow. Took a while to do. And of course, meditation was a very important part in that. And that's how I ended up in the book, Becoming Supernatural.
I love it. Well, I mean, I have so many
questions. I know, I was gonna say.
I want to, don't let us forget to talk about trauma, but so there was so many things, you know, we know about your story, and there's so many things leading up to this point where you met Kelly and Dr. Joe Dispenza. And one of the things that I heard about you, and maybe you can talk about this, because this part I think is super incredible, is that you believed in this for a year before you saw any physical changes. So, you know, I'd like you to talk about that, because I feel like I was telling Jeanna before you got on the call, I said, I did the Dr. Joe Dispenza's for a week and a half, and then I stopped. I'm like, why did I stop? Okay. And how, you know,
you're talking about the meditation.
Yeah. The meditation process. And I don't know about all the other things that you did at that time, but how did you have that faith? And And did you keep that faith? And for others that are trying to heal, is like, what advice would you have during, I consider that like, I mean, I think you had some serious dark night of the soul, not being able to walk at a time period and all kinds of things that happened to you.
Yeah.
So
Right.
how did you do that? I mean, are you just supernatural, or can the average ordinary person, you know, like, so
without a cape.
without, she has several capes, Jeanna,
I
like
know,
several.
I
Okay.
know, yeah.
And so like, what about if
great
we have
question.
half a cape?
Yeah. How do you not let the inaction and despair get in your way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, I can tell you, I went through all those emotions you just prescribed. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they were all there every day. Fear was there, doubt was there,
Yeah.
Mhm.
guilt was there. And especially fear is a very strong emotion when you are suffering, and your body has a condition, right? But once I started thinking, you know, it's all about relearning something. We are not told that we can cure ourselves.
Right.
That we have these self-healing powers within ourselves, and that the body will restore itself when we are getting into the right mode and mind and nourishment and energy. So it took me being a trained clinical psychologist and psychotherapist and having a very strong analytical mind. It took me 1.5 years to get out of that, but I had nothing to lose.
Right.
Right.
You know? So it was like, for me, it was like, okay, I made this intention and I just had to find the energy every day to keep myself to that appointment, that I would go and sit no matter what would show up in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I had nothing to do. I lost my job. I lost everything. You know, I was just with my kids. I was raising them alone. And my body had this several conditions. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, at least one thing at a day I can do where I feel that I'm in charge. And that was sitting and meditating. No matter what would be the outcome. I was not busy with the outcome. I was busy with giving myself the space to allow my body at some point to be healed. And I didn't know that when that moment would be. But hearing Dr. Joe speak at that time and saying, can you believe in an outcome that is not there, but you strongly believe and put that intention. You have to put it with such intention, with such an energy that, it will show up one day. You don't know, you don't go over the showing up.
Mm-hmm.
You only go over that you do it, that you stay on track. And that is what I did for about 2 years, 3 times a day.
Wow.
I sat with myself morning, afternoon, evening, and I meditated. And in that time, I talk now about 2011. He had not that much of meditations that are available now.
Yep.
But just a few, blessing of the energy center.
Yes.
And there was this few meditations around, but I did the blessing of the energy centers every day.
Wow.
Sometimes 2 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me through these mental and emotional states that I was in.
Well, it probably, sorry, I didn't mean to, I can imagine that probably, just putting myself in your spot with all this, the job is gone, you're by yourself raising children, and a great deal of fear, and you've been doing all of the things, all the protocols, and with no positive progress for your cancer. Even if you're not sure there's an outcome, at least you're active in something that will be trying, there's an action, there's activity on your part, even if it just means going and sitting and doing a meditation, you're a part of the healing process that you aren't often. And I can imagine how scary and frustrated it is that you are in the innocent, or maybe not so much as a bystander of your disease. And there's oftentimes for many people not like anything, there's no call to action other than follow the protocol, take the medication, eat well. But this is like taking that and really becoming an active participant and, co-creating a different outcome for your health.
exactly.
Yeah.
And having
Interesting.
such a strong belief and a strong emotional reason
Yeah.
to live. And I did many more things. I worked on the spiritual, mental, and emotional level. And at the same time, I worked on the physical level as well. I stopped sugar. I started radical change of my diet, my rest and sleep. I did a lot of supplements. You know, I went through many alternative healers. I went to shaman. I went many people, and I took from everybody. I took something.
Yeah.
And so we cannot say what caused this, but I know that there was a quantum leap in where that suddenly there was a huge transformation going on in my mental, emotional, and energy level. And then I knew it's going up. So that was after 1.5 years. And still then it took till September. Now I'm talking about March 2011 when I started. And in September 2013, I got the diagnosis cancer-free. So all this time, I didn't know. But in the meantime, between March 2011 and September 2013, a lot of changes, a lot of transformation was happening on all 4 areas of my existence.
Well, I love, oh,
I
sorry.
love that.
I love you talking about that, because what it says to me is, even if it's not a health related issue, and we'll get into how you help people just manifest the dream, what they desire.
Right.
But what you're saying, I think, is that the practices you did, even the physical practices that you did, raised your, I want to say, I hate to say vibration, but people in our audience will understand that, like, raised your frequency, like it changed. Instead of being in fear, which I can imagine that sometimes that would still creep up, right? But that you could get into a place, like Jeanna, you were saying, at least you can get into a place of, I'm meditating, I'm in control, I'm, you know, and your body and your mind are elevating in frequency, which I guess is that's the secret sauce to transformation. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And once you change your level of energy and your frequency, I mean, it's like the miracles started happening. I was sitting at one of the retreats, and then I ended up sitting next to a doctor, and he started talking about a certain treatment for cancer, which was done in Germany, which was not done in the Netherlands. And I looked into it, and then I came to know that, hey, actually, cancer is a disease of the immune system. So there must be an opportunity in my immune system so that these cells can grow this way. And of course, I knew in the meantime, by that time, because it's living forward and understanding backward, right?
Yes.
So by that time, I knew that the main cause of my disease was the emotional trauma I suffered. And we know from the psychoneuroimmunology, the English word is very difficult for us Dutch, is that there's an impact in the psyche, which then impacts the brain, which is the neuro, and then impacts the hormonal system and the body, which is your immune system. So once I started understanding that phenomena, I started looking in what caused this. What is actually the emotional underlying stress, and what has given this effect on my brain, on my neural system, on my hormonal system, on my body system, on my immune system, which is this cascade of systems that start falling down. I knew that that was the original trauma, is that when my husband committed suicide, he just left me, walked out of the house. And I was left with 3 children from one moment on the other one, being devastated, in fear, in shock. And those emotions were stored in my body.
Yes.
The body keeps the score of such an event. You know, every emotion is an end product of an experience. So such a huge negative experience, the end product were very negative and very heavy emotions. And once we know and understand the working of emotions on the body and the brain, then we know that they create a certain state of being in us, which then create a certain state of illness in our bodies, because the body is the instrument of feelings. And the brain
I
is
love
when
that.
Boy, for sure.
and we experience our feelings in our body. But I had a program running into my subconscious mind. I had to be strong. I had to continue. And that was an upbringing, a conditioning for my childhood, which was in my childhood, we never talked about feelings.
Right.
We put them under the table and hide for each other.
Yeah.
So my conditioning was hiding my feelings. So during the day, I was hiding everything that I was feeling, was continuing to do my work as if I was an automatic pilot.
Right.
And in nighttime, when the quiet moments came, then my mind would go berserk and I couldn't sleep. And all my feelings that I suppressed during the day as a coping mechanism, because this is coping, I suppressed, in the night came up. And where do you feel that? In your stomach.
Oh yeah, she knows all
stomach.
about that.
I do. I think I have a lot going on down there too.
Well, it's interesting.
My
So let's
stomach,
talk about this, because clearly, I mean, we've researched your background, and one of the things, I mean, there's so many things I love about you, but one of the things I really love about you and our conversation right now is you're a scientist, a clinical, a doctor, like of traditional, and then now you've been for the past 10 years or so, had this holistic approach. So you've got the whole I feel like you've got the whole picture, where other people only have slices of it. And so trauma, I think our new day and age recently, we're starting to understand that trauma isn't just being physically abused. I mean, the heavy things, which I want you to talk about this, Anouk, because when we talk about Jeanna, I mean, like, compared to Anouk, you got nothing. Okay, you got really, zero.
My stomach should be just
you're
easy breezy,
but it isn't. And we all experience trauma. And
I was going to ask what the definition, what's the definition of trauma,
and then so we don't wait for the illness, but it does create unhappiness for sure. And what things
first of all, trauma is a disconnection from the self, from yourself. And trauma is not only the bad things that happen to you, it's also the good things that should have happened that don't happen or didn't happen.
Oh, I could cry. Okay.
That's what trauma is.
That's mine.
That's it. It's a disconnection from yourself. It's a disconnection from the body, from the feelings.
So we should have expected good things.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when, especially when a child, for example, Dr. Gabor Mate talks a lot about that. And he has a book, which is When the Body Says No, in which he really explains also how stress and trauma creates illness. Because one thing that we know from people that have experienced trauma or have experienced a chronic stress due to disconnection from the self or from themselves, that they have a higher level of cortisol. So they are more prone to having infectious, autoimmune disease, and any other disease like cancer or diabetes or whatever, or even neurological inflammation. We know that. So what is the cause with this disconnection is you start developing parts of you, starts developing coping mechanisms to deal with certain states of you, which means that you even, the more and longer it takes, the more disconnected you get. And the more you come into a state of not being happy. And that has an effect on the body. And as a child, if you had parents, like I, for example, had parents who couldn't help me regulate my emotional state because they were so busy with themselves and surviving themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So that means that the good thing that should have happened to me, nurturing, being held, being comforted, being regulated in your nervous system when you were upset as a child, it didn't happen. That already is trauma. Because for keeping the attachment with your parents going on, you suppress your own feelings.
Right.
Children do suppress their authentic feelings, which are actually the gut feelings, in order to keep the attachment with the parents. So the good things that should have happened aren't happening as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're circa same vintage, and my parents, like I had none of the comforting or the hugging or any of that, and I didn't think I had any trauma. But of course, I didn't have any feelings. I would say I have no feelings. Okay,
Right.
I'd have to ask Jeanna, and I'm in my 50s. Okay, like so I asked Jeanna, how am I feeling now? I have to ask somebody how I'm feeling. Okay, like that's ridiculous. And so I think, but you can start anytime. I think that's the good news. That's what you're going to tell me, Anouk.
Right. Yes. Yes.
I've started a while ago.
Yes,
though,
you
to be
have.
honest.
You really
I've been at least 10 years on trying to overcome some of those things that I didn't even acknowledge was trauma.
Well, and the way you just described, I mean, you probably saw us have like this huge like reaction to what you said. And, I think so many, and we've talked on this podcast, I feel like I walk around with my head not being attached to my body. There's been a disconnect that's been going on for a long time. And I remember saying, oh, did something happen? I don't know what it is. Like, why? Because I had a very different childhood. Like I was very supported and loved, and it was very, very, supportive, and I had all the things that there's not anything I could think back on and go, well, that's traumatic to me. But I didn't think about what life could have been or should have been, what things didn't, the good things that didn't occur, how that impacts. And that resonated in a massive way for me. And
that's a big aha moment.
Oh, I mean, honestly, thank you. Because I've never heard anybody say that or describe it the way you did.
Well, because Jeanna had been searching. I'm sorry, Jeanna.
No, please.
Jeanna had been searching for maybe I blocked something out that was horrible. And
maybe something happened that I can't remember, something. Why did I do it? There's nothing I want to block.
Yes.
But I do want to block that I didn't follow through and didn't make some things happen in my life from a career and love standpoint for who I am that I've dreamt of doing since I was a child. I didn't do it. And, then I created a whole new version of myself and mourn the old version. Right. So I think that will do a lot of people some favors.
That's it. And you can create a better part, a best expression of yourself. It's only you have to know how. And to me, this can never happen from a forcing way. It's with a lot of self-acceptance. It's with a lot of self-love. It's with a lot of self-compassion that you can start growing and changing yourself, because in understanding how you function, how you think, how you feel, how you act, and that all those feelings you have are an end product of something that happened in your life. You see, the limbic system, and Bessel van der Kolk is a psychiatrist who wrote a book, Body Keeps the Score. He explains that very well from a neuroscience perspective, where he says that the limbic system keeps on getting all these experiences, which is, the limbic system is your emotional part of the brain, but it's also the chemical part of the brain. And every emotion has a chemical, and in your body is the receptors for every emotion. Like Candace Pert in her book Molecules of Emotion wrote about that there's a whole intelligent system in your body that has a receptor site for one specific emotion. And that's the chemical component. So you feel something, but you also have a chemical component, which then your body gets addicted to.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
And that's why it's sometimes so difficult to change our feelings, because the body, if you've done something for 40 years and you thought in a certain way, you felt in a certain way, and you acted in a certain way, it's like a program.
Right.
And it's not only mental, but it's also chemical. And like if you have been angry your whole life, there's in your whole body is active a system for anger, and it craves for it.
Yeah.
You will
Because
find
it's been fed it, right? I got it. Got
because
it.
your emotions feed the way you think.
Mhm.
And when you start thinking in anger, feeling anger, and you start thinking in anger, what do you get? More anger.
Of course. Of course.
So,
you pull it
Wow.
into that groove and make that groove deeper in that record. I always think of it that way.
so the neural pathways in your brain get programmed more and more. And I tell you, some of those programs can be concrete, you know, stuck.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Well, right. Okay. So let's go to solutions then.
Yes.
So let's talk about, you know, I love that you said I went to shamans. I went to like, cause I like, oh, let me try this and pull this from this energy healer. Let me pull this and, you know, you take what works for you. But so in order to create a new groove with a new, more positive, higher vibration, more authentic piece of you, is that what you teach at the retreats and clearly, you know, you've got your coaching too. What do people have to do to do that? I mean, what is what is required?
Yeah. And how, you know, is this over the course, given those grooves have been there for 40 plus years, you know, what's the general rule of thumb around how long it takes you, if you know you're really diligent about it and you stay with it to regroove the record.
And rewire yourself. Your conditioning. It's you can never say how long something takes.
Sure.
In a 50, I had breakthroughs with body work, for example, like emotional body work, where I was able to finally use my voice and scream and use my body for things that I could never release. Okay. So my body had kept a lot of emotions inside. So I was able to catar and really scream it out and work through the body, like Peter Levine's work, which somatic experience. That when you have trauma, the body always keeps the score. So you have to let the body talk. So you have to work on different levels, right?
Yes.
To me, I've discovered a trinity. And I would like to talk about that. It's like therapy, you go into hypnosis. And from hypnosis, you go into meditation.
Okay.
Because once you go through therapy, like you finally go through things that you have worked out, you are allowed yourself to scream, you're allowed yourself to investigate your cognitive thinking and feeling and behavior. That's therapy, right?
Yeah.
And then you go into hypnosis, which is the mindfulness approach, which is hypnotic states where you start looking into the subconscious mind.
Right.
And then once you go from hypnosis into meditation, you can go into the deep subconscious mind and you start rewiring it. Because you can talk to yourself. All the guided meditations that are out there in the world are meditations to give yourself an allowance for something new. So you unlearn the old and you start relearning the new. And you have to take the body into it. Because as I said, thinking is the language of the brain and feeling is the language of the body. So if you only start thinking positive, but you don't feel positive, you bring it into the body. And for example, in your heart, because the heart center is the bridge. Bridge to the spiritual dimensions. Love, gratitude, compassion is the higher frequency emotions. Right. And they measured that on a scale. HeartMath Institute measures that. What is the effect of opening your heart and allowing your heart to be healed, allowing yourself to feel more elevated emotions? Those are the frequencies that help you change. and help also change the frequencies in the body. But if the body is still full of stored contraction, rigidity, anger, or a lot of grief, and all these receptor sites are active all the time, you first have to work on that. So in my retreats, I always do embodiment as well, somatic transformation.
Yeah.
And then the heart opening, the heart activation. It's with self-compassion, gratitude exercise, self-compassion exercises. And then you start into the hypnosis, like you're telling yourself, oh, I was a bad person. No, what could you say to yourself as well? Oh, I'm good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm
Right.
loved. I'm worthy. I'm the person that I'm waiting for. You know, what is the best expression of myself?
Right.
And then you can start loving yourself more. And from that, you come into a different frequency altogether. And again, when you have a new experience, you get new feelings and new thoughts. And only then the brain will get motivated to continue.
Right.
Because your brain is manufactured to keep the same thing. And it needs motivation, it needs activation, stimulation to become something else.
Well, and you know, when you think about it, like, you know, if you like you talked about like that kind of chemical reaction to an emotion, you know, the body doesn't, until it's introduced to something new that it feels better, right? It's going to just take what you give it. And, you know, a chemical is a chemical, like it's feeding something, obviously. And until that makes complete, so I had never thought about I didn't even think about the chemical component of it, which is all, you know, in and of itself will inspire and be comfortable with what it knows, which is that similar chemistry all the time, and may not even have enough opportunity to be exposed to a different chemical that may like actually resonate, right? Or feel better. And and
that's why it's so good to go to these retreats, you know, like you give yourself another experience. For me, that was so wonderful to go to all these retreats. You know, I sold my house and I needed to make money for that, but it was worth it to go, you know, to go to Lynn McTaggart, to go to Greg Braden, to go to Bruce Lipton, to go to all these pioneers, to Kelly Howell, to, you know, all these pioneers that were there in this field of healing, which almost all came together in the movie Heal, right? You saw that movie? So all these people, they tell you it's possible. But you have to give yourself an experience of change. And that can start small. Like when I didn't have the money and I didn't have the possibility, I went to a beautiful spot where I knew at least I would feel beautiful, you know, and because in the beginning I was limited. I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair. I had a myelitis, which was an infection of the bone marrow. So I was paralyzed due to the stress, of course. But, that's another story again. And but then I was allowing myself to at least experience one thing which is beautiful, which would give me this feeling of gratitude or awe, you know, and that is already a change for your system.
Yeah, so I like that you're saying, like, start out, if you don't have money and you want to make changes, start out with, you know, going somewhere where you feel differently. And then what about meditations? I know you have meditations on your website. Would you direct them to any certain meditation, or, because I think that that's a big component too, right?
Yes, and we kept them low price so everybody can what is a very beautiful meditation is the heart activation, because that is where you can start feeling again the heart. And that, what I said before, the heart is the seat of your soul, your intention, why you are here on this planet. So if you can start connecting with your higher self again and reconnect with it, you can start with activating your heart center. And you can use the start your day meditation. Or when you don't sleep well, you can use the sleep well meditation. And when you really want to practice, the Kundalini meditation is the one that is really practicing. But that one is an hour, and then healing of the energy centers is also 1 hour. Then you really have to be practiced. The other ones are 30 minutes, which everybody can do, actually. Also, if you're not a trained meditator.
Wow.
I love that. So you've been doing this holistic work for over 10 years now. You've had your 10-year, almost your 10-year, you're on your 10-year anniversary of remission. Yay.
Yeah, this year, 11 years.
11 years. Okay, I love that.
Wonderful.
2023, it's 10 years, huh?
Yes.
So I'm 11 years in this work.
Yeah.
I started in 2011, but the remission is in 2023. It will be 10 years.
Wow.
I love that.
Beautiful.
Well, that's beautiful. What has your work changed or deepened as you've gone along these past 10 years?
Yes, my work and my personal life have changed tremendously. I'm not the same person anymore.
Yeah.
I could not go back to mental institutions. I could not go back and work there. I work now in my private practice. I have a training organization. I have a beautiful team of people I work with, and a good network of healers and naturopaths and doctors. And we try to help people to get this holistic approach, and that there's possibility for healing, that they start believing in that.
It's so powerful.
You know, you talked quite a bit, or you know, in kind of sharing about yourself and that you practice positive psychology. Can you kind of share a little bit about like what is the difference of positive psychology versus maybe the practice you had prior to the shift that you've made, and maybe you know, a couple, three, or you know, a thing, whatever you'd like to share with the audience around, you know, simple things that we all could do to maybe impart some of that positive psychology in our everyday living.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you say that. You see, positive psychology and trauma, I never thought that would be the solution. And it is. Because positive psychology goes about being responsible for your own healing and seeing possibilities. You see, like when I was studying psychology, I was told as a student, the nerve system, when there's damage and when there's psychiatric diseases, it will never change. You will have to accept. That's in the 80s, yeah? I'm talking about the 80s. And you know,
not that long ago, aka. Right.
Exactly. And people were saying behavior is stuck. You know, and I was like, at that time I was already like, I'm not sure what you're saying, but I mean, you're young, you're trained in a certain way, right? So, and now, luckily, with all the neuroscience we can show, you know, the brain is adaptable, the brain is neuroplastic. And the neuroplasticity, we can start use the self-directed neuroplasticity, and we can use this in order for us to change behavior and patterns. So there's a huge shift already.
Huge,
The people that now know this science, we know they're not telling you anymore that you have to live with it. You get stuck, right? But in my time, I as a trainee, I used to say that to people. You have to learn to live with your depression. You have to learn to live with your this and your that, you know, and accept it. that this is part of you. You know?
Right.
Well, that's
That would want to put you in a mental institution
thank God
yourself,
we're not
right?
the
Yeah.
ADs.
Who
God.
wants to deliver that? I mean, I think I
that's
have a
terrible.
tough gig some days. That's worse.
One nocebo after the other. You know, actually, we
Yeah.
were harming people with that.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, because a nocebo is you harm a person, and placebo is what positive psychology does. It says, hey, you know, you have the capacity, even if you're severely suffering from a PTSS, we can help you to see solutions. We can support you to become a little mindful about yourself. We can support you to reduce your day-to-day stress, and you can start seeing possibilities for yourself again. What message is that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well, listen, I love, I mean, you're like a completely different practitioner than you were 10, 11 years ago. Like, that's just, I mean,
Exactly.
what a masterful like shift and
Yes.
gift you are to all of us. Yeah. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
Incredible.
Well, I mean, sadly, I think our time is, let's stretch it out.
Yes. Well, listen, I think this is I'm hoping this is our first conversation with Anouk, and there'll be many more.
I know.
Yeah.
You might have to, I might start stalking her too.
Yes, I'm gonna sign up as her client here shortly. Yes.
Oh, I love you,
Yeah,
Anouk
we
Bindels.
really
I love
do.
you.
We
Okay,
really
I
do.
love what you do, and we like to ask our guests to say if you wanted to change one thing, or ask somebody to change one thing to consciously create a life of their dreams. We've been talking about healing, but this works for your dreams too,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
Absolutely.
What should they shift? And you don't have to just say one. And I was going to answer that for you, but I'm not supposed to answer questions. I'm supposed to ask them.
You are so good with feedback. Yes.
I'm evolving as a person. And, I always think, oh, I know based on what you said, pick me. But, that's like an overachiever thing that I'm letting go of. Okay.
But if you ask her to share, she will.
I will.
Yeah.
I would say, are you living in a growth mindset or not?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Because your mindset, and if it's focused on growth or if it's focused on lack, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
What about, and I have another question on this, is there a growth set that you'd call like stagnation? Like we get up and we do the same thing every day. If we have the same thing, what would you say to that?
I call that languishing, but that's just what I say about myself. Languishing a little bit. Yeah.
It's a lot about that. It's very good. You have two opportunities in your day. That means when you wake up and when you go to bed.
Yes.
Because then your brain waves change and you go from your beta high state mind into alpha. In alpha, you can already start getting into the meditative state, but in theta, you can create. That's the lucid state. So when you're tired and you move and you go to bed with a proper mindset and you start giving yourself the right narrative and you wake up again, you have another opportunity to create your day. And the moment you wake up, I do that every morning. My start your day meditation is my process I do every morning.
Yeah.
How am I going to show up today? What is the best expression of myself? And my body was conditioned for fear for about 50 years because I was brought up as a child and I was living in fear. And every morning I woke up till about 2 years ago. I managed to really get that program out of my body. I would wake up with a fear in my body. Normally, I would act on that, right? My mind would start creating the fear thoughts. But in being aware, because once you are in a meta position and you can observe yourself and the program, neuroscience calls this the metacognition. You're out of the program.
Yeah.
And you can, in that moment, start reconditioning yourself. So in the morning when I used to wake up, would fear creep up in my body? Another day. Is my body going to be better? oh, how can I
Yeah,
have
right.
enough money for my kids?
yeah.
You
Right.
know, seconds. I would pick myself and say, oh, wow, there you are again. Okay, now this is not how I want to show up today. How do I want to show up today? I want to feel good. What is the easiest emotion for me to grasp? Is compassion for myself.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And then I would start living from that. And then a whole new landscape is, we started this, and a whole new landscape would appear. But if I would have continued with the same landscape, what would you think that would happen?
Yeah.
Same thing you've been getting. Yeah, exactly.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Same thing would show up.
Wow.
I love it.
Growth mindset.
Growth mindset. it is.
Intentional. Be intentional with that. Yeah.
Yes. Clear intentions,
Yeah.
elevated emotion, and you are a magnet for a new landscape.
Well, I love the permission to really audit yourself.
Audit. You
I
the
use
word
that
audit.
for you.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I'm an
know.
accountant in my past life.
Yeah.
An auditor.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
to audit your how you're showing up and call it out, acknowledge it, and reset. Use that to reset. And it does kind of give you permission to kind of, I think of higher self as kind of this visual over the soul and the spirit, sort of that in a day-to-day application, right?
Beautiful.
And I like that. I think you said, Anouk, find the emotion that you can grab.
Yeah.
I think you said that. Like, so if it's compassion, then compassion it is. That's a beautiful emotion.
If it's joy,
or
joy
if we can get to gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Wherever you're at, you get to where you can go.
Love.
Yeah, love.
And love is a very huge power. So
It
once
is.
you start loving yourself and showing up as a loving person, it opens doors. One
Everywhere. Door. Yeah. We talk on the podcast about, and I'm feeling it today, just even in our conversation, just with you and your energy, Anouk, because, those people in a room that you can't like not want to hang out with, be with,
Well, that's why I'm stalking her.
I know. I see that now. I understand.
I know Netherlands is a long ways away, but I'm going.
We really, Amsterdam's been on the bucket list for a long time. We go. But so I just kind of keep. That's the goal here, is to be that bright light in a room with people, and whatever that is for somebody. It doesn't have to be bright, like flashy. It can just be this energetic.
Bubbly,
magnet.
like the uncorked bubble you have there.
Like the uncorked bubbly, exactly.
Uncorked.
Yes,
exactly.
that's love coming out of that cork. That's what I think. It's love.
Got it.
And some sparkles, because I like a little bling.
Yeah,
but
we got some glitter.
Little glitter with love.
Yeah. Sounds perfect.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Art, thank you so much for
Fantastic.
joining us and spending your evening, our morning.
Yes.
I mean, this is a beautiful Monday. You're beautiful. Thank you for sharing yourself with us. It was well worth the wait. And
your story is the human spirit.
It is.
Story.
Everybody should go read the chapter 1 of Supernatural. We'll put your website and all the ways they can get a hold of you on our show notes. And I suggest you go check out her meditations and all her offerings and
sign up for the retreat quickly, because
now run behind us, because we're going to be in the front of the line.
Yeah, we're going to be at the top of the list for sure. So
I love it. Thank you so much.
Anouk, thank you.
You're beautiful. Thank you very much.
True pleasure and an honor today. Thank you.
All right, everyone.
All right. Thank you.